Welcome to The Truth in This Art, your source for conversations bridging arts, culture, and community. I am your host, Rob Lee. Welcome back. And since you're back, I want to ask you to do me a quick favor, and all the guests, they're part of this as well. Do us a quick favor. Leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think of the podcast. It helps us grow, helps us get exposure, and these stories reach a broader audience. So enough of that, and let's get into today's episode. Today, I am super excited to welcome my next guest. My guest is a multi-talented comedian, teacher, storyteller, improviser, and writer based out of Baltimore, Maryland. Home team. My guest is passionate about fostering connections through storytelling and comedy. Please welcome Malik Coleman. Welcome to the podcast.
Peace. Thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. That's the first time I've actually run through the actual professional introduction. Not
right.
Like, yeah, here's Malik.
Malik, speak right now.
Look, I'm waiting for you to come up with a corny podcast called Malik Speaks. It's just you like this holding your fingers.
Well, you called it corny, so now I can't do it. Thanks a lot for that.
You shouldn't. Don't do it. I help with production, so we'll talk if you're interested.
All right.
But before we get into like the deeper conversation rather, I want to give you the space to introduce yourself. Like I gave the sort of cut and paste online piece, but I think sometimes those online bios, artist statements, and all of that, they tend to miss the mark sometimes. It's something that's left out that's very crucial to the essence of who the person is. So I want to give you the space to do that. Introduce yourself.
All right. I am Ti Malik Coleman. I go by Ti Malik or Malik. My pronouns are he, him. At my heart, I'm a storyteller, so I tell stories on multiple mediums. My favorite medium right now is the stage, and I tell stories comedically, sometimes very seriously. I believe that we are at our best when we are connected to each other and connected to ourselves, connected to our higher powers. And so most of my art making, the goal is some sort of connection. Like I'm a person that thirsts connection, and I think other people thirst for connection. So I'm constantly looking like how do we see each other better? How do we feel each other better? All of that. I got my start in art through improv comedy. Improv led to storytelling really, really quickly. And I've been in both of those for the last 14 years. And recently I have started my baby career as a filmmaker. So I'm in production with my very first documentary. Yeah. And I'm very Black. And that's very important. I meant to start there. And I'm a trans man. That's also very important, part of how I show up in this world. And I probably, after this podcast, I'm gonna be like, why didn't I say that important thing? But I think that's good. Oh, and I want to say that I am led by my ancestors in a lot that I do. And that's also very important for me to say.
Thank you. See, like I said, that bio is just like, we got this, but it's like, no. Where's the other pieces? Where's those other, savory nuggets there? So thank you for that. And as I'm one to do, I like to kind of get to the root of things, like sort of where those things begin, right? Where those creative interests lie and where they begin. And, I came to this realization and actually throwing this podcast where I had a guest point out like, you were on the stage early, something, right? You did something. I was like, nah, I'm afraid of the stage. I'm just gangly. I can play a tree in a play or something. And she was like, no, think about it. And, she reminded me, of something that I did as a kid. I was in a master's of ceremony for like a school play when I was like 5, which terrifies me. I'm like, how, did I do that? So, but it's a memory I don't remember well, but I remember enough of it. So for you, with the storytelling and sort of having a life, a very Black life, I've got to add, what is it in your childhood, whether it be sort of a story that sticks out for you, that's particularly impactful and relates to like who you are today as an artist?
Well, I do remember, I have a vague memory of my first time on stage.
Sure.
And it was James Mosher Elementary School, which is now, I think, Billie Holiday. Shout out to 144. And I was a top reader in my class. And so there was a big thing in the evening time, and all the top readers got to read like 2 pages from a book.
Sure.
And I got to read the book. And I remember the applause of the people. And I was like, I want that. Like, I like applause. And it was years before also I'm a Leo. But it was I should have started that.
Boop, boop,
I
boop.
listened to a podcast. So I know you're an Aquarius. I know that. So I heard that applause and I was like, I like that a lot. But it was many years before I graced the stage again. And as far as art making, things that stick out, I in seventh grade, I believe, we had an assignment. We had a journal, and in the beginning of class, we had to write in the journal. And sometimes we could free write, or sometimes we would have an assignment for the day in the journal.
Yeah.
And I started this story at the beginning of the year, and I continued the story throughout the whole year. So the journal was one long story. And no matter what the assignment was, I found a way to weave it into the story.
Sure.
And my teacher thought it was just the most creative thing she'd ever seen. She's like, I've never seen someone take that challenge before. And so from an early age, I thought maybe I have some cool creative perspective that other people don't have. Plus, I like applause. So those two things, like those two thoughts were in my mind. And then I ran as far away from being an artist as possible for many, many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and thank you. Because I look at it like we all kind of do a version of that, right? Where, it's the choose your own adventure thing I look at sometimes, where there's a universe. Like I watch the, Marvel movies, there's a multiverse out there, right? And there's these different inflection points. There's a Rob that was a comic artist. There's a Rob that was an astronaut doctor. That was a thought I had I was going to be. There's a Rob that was a rapper. I might be dabbling, to ask Thomas about this. You should talk to Thomas about this.
Oh, I
But,
will.
but, ultimately there was always sort of this creative thing that I was interested in. And really, I guess I dove back into it a little bit, probably in high school, but it was something that was there, as I was saying earlier, of being a master of ceremony, always drawing, things of that nature. At like 5, and then revisiting it more than a decade later and say, oh, yeah, the creative thing, this is how it works. And then kind of giving it that period where I'm not doing it. And then coming back to it maybe 5 to 10 years later. And, I've been doing it. As I said, I've been, podcasting for 15 years, and this is sort of my creative outlet, but I've had different stops along the way. And sometimes those are things that are very, very, very different. So for you, what was that moment or that series of events that led you back to pursuing something creative when you were doing something that was far away from it?
Yeah, I was very far away. I was an insurance accounting supervisor.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I was miserable. And I wanted to, what did I want to do? I wanted to meet people, have a good time, and I was trying to figure out how to do that as an adult. And I saw an advertisement for an improv workshop
Mm-hmm.
at Washington Improv Theater. And I remembered when I was in high school, I took a drama class that I like, and I remember people told me I was funny. And so those were enough facts for me. And I went and took this improv workshop, and I was like, oh, this is all I want to do. This is it. This is it. You've sold me. Make shit up and people laugh. That's it. And so I started taking classes. At the time, DC didn't have a big indie scene. So I actually ended up coming to, because I lived outside of DC at the time, and I ended up coming to Baltimore and finding an indie troupe here.
Yeah.
And that was like, that all that started the classes and everything started about 14 years ago. And I think it took me maybe 2 years from that class to moving. And then a year after that, I quit my job. And was like, I'm just gonna figure it out. I don't know what that means, but I know I'm not an insurance accountant. I know that. Um, and so that's what I did and kind of dove into art all the way.
Yeah, it's and thank you, because that's one of those things where you make that choice, you make that leap, that dive. Some people it's a fumble. It's like I fell into art, like literally I hurt my head, and I come to that a lot in
Mm,
doing this. Like when I talk to people and they're like, "So you do this full time, right?" It's like, no, I just do this a lot. I have a
right.
day job, and but continually sort of thinking through it. And, you know, I always kind of, I guess it's every maybe month or maybe every quarter, think about what my why is. Why do
Mm,
I do this? Why am I interested in it? And, as you were touching on earlier, the sort of hook that was there of meeting people, right? That's a way that I can do it while being incredibly shy. I'm a shy individual and I can't hide despite that's why I want to play the tree in the background on stage. I can't hide. So this is my way of doing it. And for me, and I don't know if how many people know this, but I try to lead with some semblance of connection and friendship. That's
mm,
what I'm looking at. So, and I use that to kind of segue into this question. Could you speak on sort of finding like your why, like where you're at in this stage? You said 14 plus years at this point, right?
right.
And, blending storytelling, comedy, education, writing, and having that passion of fostering connections.
Mm.
Let's talk about that a bit. Like, that it can be lofty. It's a lot of things. Like I said, it's multiple people, it feels like, so talk about
That's
it.
what it feels like inside. Shit, Rob. I have to bring all of my me's together, sit us down. It's like, all right, let's conference this thing out. But to get to my why, that's a good question. I I face the consequences of not feeling connected for a good period of my life. Starting being being a trans kid is a weird experience, especially when I was a kid. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and we didn't have words like transgender. We didn't even talk about gender. I don't even like we didn't have no nuanced conversation. It was like boys over there, girls over there. That's all you need to know. And so from an early age, I felt very othered and disconnected. And then also growing up, some of the places I grew up were my mom was in the army when I was growing up. And so we moved places where they were like, I lived in Maine, okay? I lived in Arizona, right? Like we found it was like where's the most white people? Send them there. Send them there. It's actually one of the reasons why I'm so militant today, I think, is because I just spent so much time around white people as a kid. But I I say all that to say I grew up feeling disconnected because I did not see myself reflected anywhere. Um, and that disconnection led me down a lot of bad paths. Like it was detrimental to my mental health. I suffered from depression and anxiety from early adolescence. I am a recovering alcoholic. So I drank for many years. I suffered because I could not connect or I didn't feel connected to people.
Yeah.
Um, and so through art making, I one I want uh I don't want anyone to not see themselves, right? So I'm like, let's see as many different people on stage as possible
Sure.
so that someone can see themselves. And two, it is lofty, but I if I can like stop a person from facing the consequences of being disconnected, then I feel like good enough for me.
Yeah. That's great, and thank you for sharing. And it's a lot of vulnerability, in which you were saying there, and it's real. You know what I mean? Where I try to be in this sort of I'm the host. I can't really, I'll sprinkle in my stuff, but it's a tactic, right? That interrogators use or like hostage negotiation use. It's like, yeah, share a little bit of yours, but you're really trying to get theirs. And I find that, you know, connecting with people, even on a sort of surface level thing, or even when it gets deeper than that, you know, there are some folks that locally and even abroad when I traveled outside that because of that connection, because of that, like I see you, I see what you're into. It's like it could be something as stupid as, yo, you like this movie? Hell yeah, like we should grab coffee. We should do this. Or yeah, you got that reference that I made? Oh, okay, that's great. Or as you touched on, like applause as well. If someone were to throw out there, you're funny, I'm like, oh my God, don't do that. I'm here now. And we're now friends.
Right.
And I did an interview, probably last month, and fellow Aquarius is linking up, and me and my friend Tanya Everett, and she's an actress and playwright and all of this really cool stuff, but a lot of her work is storytelling, but it's around like grief. And that was the most vulnerable I've ever gotten on a podcast. I was like, wow, you pulled this out of me. Something was here. And that shows that sort of power of connection and that sort of being seen. Because we had a conversation before we even got to the podcast, like a real like real life sort of conversation. So it was shorthand and those barriers were gone. And I think the way that I look at this whole arc, we're coming up on 800 interviews, right? I think, I don't say, hey, let's just talk, do a story. We're having a conversation and there's elements of story in there and what the real thing is in it. And I would like to think, as loosely as it is, it's community building that's there. And for some folks, when they're really diving in and going deep, it kind of helps and facilitates healing. Like there are some folks who are like, hey, I realized I'm an artist. I realized my work matters. I realized my story matters. And it's coming on something like this. So again, another segue. I'm trying to be real tight here. How does the role of like storytelling like build community and facilitate healing?
Yeah, that was a good transition. Very good. Your transitions are great, by the way. Doing a great job. Great job. I'm a facilitator. I forgot to mention at the top. So transitions is something I deeply appreciate. Let's see here. Storytelling does a few things. One, hearing someone's story is connection, right? Like just like you did at the top of the show, where it's I can read your bio, but tell us who you are. Me telling you who you are is a story, right? It's starting the story, and that's a deeper connection. So I think just that the intimacy of stories is as a connector, but the best part is the process of telling your story.
Sure.
The things that you have to touch in order to bring a story out really connect you to yourself. And I think that the more that you feel connected and comfortable to yourself, the more that you connect and comfort and comfort with each other. And then it's like, I think the best thing you can do with someone is share a laugh, like that's the best thing. Like when two people share a laugh, like you're smiling, you're making eye contact. It's like, yes, like I am connecting with you. And a lot of times stories, even without trying to be, have humor, because laughing is mostly some part of laughter is like involuntary. And it's involuntary because it's like there's something in your brain that says, I connect to that.
Yeah.
And so when that like having those moments during storytelling is like, I don't know, it just brings people together. And I've found that after telling a story about me, especially my identity, people who don't share my identity come up to me and say, I understand more than I've ever understood before. And it's not because they didn't have the facts, right? Like there's LGBTQ fact sheets more than we need probably. There's fact sheets everywhere out there. But that doesn't do anything until you hear yourself in someone's story. And I think that's like the last piece is that no matter how different we are, there's just universal themes in life. And when you hear if you hear a piece of yourself in someone else, like that's like, oh, I didn't even see myself in you until I heard that. And so I think all of that together just like creates just really wonderful connections.
Absolutely. And definitely, I remember watching this documentary years and years and years ago, and it was about a dude. It was very LGBTQIA centric, because I try to be a super,
Nice. Look at
and
you.
the dude that was in I think the documentary is called "Do I Sound Gay?" And I'm giggling as I'm watching it, and just seeing I think the takeaway I got out of it, and I was in this weird documentary phase. Like I was just watching, like, all right, this is gonna be white, this is gonna be weird. What do we got? And listening to sort of this dude's plight, and then listening to the people that were interviewed in it, and I was like, oh, they're terrible just like us. Oh, I connect. They judge on the most superficial thing. And as a person who has I have a specific voice, I suppose. I've been told, like, oh, you don't have the Baltimore voice. I don't know if you're from here, bro. I'm like, what does that even mean?
You
So
know damn well what that means.
like, I'm from East Baltimore. And, it's sort of that thing where I was like, I'm connected on that very, very, very superficial level of like, yeah, I'm not in. Like, what are we like? I'm not an authentic whatever the situation is. He's not an
Right.
authentic gay dude. I'm not an authentic Baltimorean, I guess. And so I was connected on. I was like rooting for this dude. I'm like, come on, man, get it together, man. Put on the affect. I don't know what it is, but you need to be in or be you. I don't know.
See, that's what I'm, and I think that's why stories are so dope, right? Like, because if someone gave you the premise of that, you probably wouldn't think you'd be like, I'm gonna educate myself, but your thought wasn't, I'm gonna see myself in that. You know what I mean? So that's what's up, man. I'm sorry they be trying to kick you out of Baltimore for your
Man.
thing. My cousins used to laugh at me because so my mom left home at like 17. So we grew up everywhere. We just came back home to Baltimore all the time.
Yeah.
So I claimed Baltimore as home. My cousins was like, I don't know that. I was like, oh, come on. It's like, you don't sound like it. They don't do that no more. When I was a kid, they used to, especially my cousin Ramon, rest in peace. He used to tease me for that all the time because I would try to claim our block, the block that my grandma and my aunt lived on. And
Yo,
I was like, I want to claim the block. And he's like, you can't claim the block. I was like,
like
I'm a bit low boy. It's like,
Pitlow.
yes.
Wow. Wow. Um,
Shout out West Baltimore.
that's Baltimore. I mean, like back in the day, I was claiming Argyle Avenue. That's when it gets real wild. It's like, you named that pattern, my G. But yeah, like, every now and again, I just have to like throw it on. Not in the sort of like patois sort of way, but I'm like, two. They're like, okay, you back, you back. Especially when I'm out of town, I'm just like aggressive with it. Um, so let's see. So we're talking about sort of the comedy piece and the storytelling and where that sort of intersects, and with the, you know, other like areas in which and where it intersects also with identity in those other areas where you're working, whether it's, you touched on filmmaking in that alliance with storytelling, improvisation, education, and writing. Could you speak on sort of how those intersect to sort of make up holistically, like what your work is about? Because I see the lines, I see how they all connect, and it's like a natural progression. But I want to hear you.
This question has been bugging me for a minute. That's why, no, for real. Listen, every time I update my bio on my website, I'm
Yeah.
like, how do I connect all these paragraphs? Because sometimes they seem like separate paragraphs. It starts improv comedian, storytelling, teaching, film, and now I'm a conflict facilitator as well, right? Like, so it's just like, what is this thing? Connection is the thing I keep coming back to, but really, I think it's I also just like I'm an explorer of the human experience, I think, and so where that takes me sometimes is like, oh, you know what? In order to explore the human experience here, I need a whole nother medium. Like improv ain't gonna hit this. And then sometimes you get to a human experience and you're like, this is like something that needs something. This needs some healing. This needs something. And then that other piece, right? Like that spirituality piece starts hitting me. And I'm like, oh, well, how can I step in? How can I be of service to this person? How can I be of service to the situation? And from there, that's where community art started.
Mm.
And community art led me straight to teaching. It was like, oh, you want to be a community artist? You're going to teach. And that, as soon as I started teaching, I was like, oh, the teaching actually helps me connect everything. There's something about uh, spreading the cult of improv to the world that makes me feel like, I really like this position. I'm gonna get back to my ego again. Uh, I like being in a position to expose someone to
Mm.
a piece of the world that they don't see all the time or they don't know all the time, right? There's like something really fascinating about that, like watching that little thing. And I think that that's one of the things, but I wish I was more concise. But anyway, this is what happens when you talk to a storyteller. I think going back, my main point is the exploration and the connection. And I think those are the things. Um and I feel like the piece that's the through line is humor, because
Mm.
I use humor in everything that I do. I use humor in facilitation. I use humor in teaching. I use humor when I'm filmmaking. I interview people when I filmmake, and as you know, humor is like just an opener. As
Yeah,
soon as you get that, people open up. So, final answer: humor, exploration, connection. Those are the things.
it's good. Thank you. Yeah, it's I find when, and I always return to this thing, like the stage thing, right?
Mm.
And I had to do a talk because people like this is a couple years ago, but it's definitely an experience along the way. And there's another thing that I'm having a meeting about tomorrow that's in that same vein. So definitely is top of mind, sort of that last experience being on stage. And I remember reaching out to a pretty famous person locally who did one of these sessions before. And, and I don't want to name drop 'cause it sounds gauche, right? But I was just like, yo, how would I do this? Like I'm, not a great on stage and I'm better than I give myself credit for, but it's like I got some nerves because it matters. It's like what me and my partner talked about. She'd asked me not long before, no, actually last year she asked me this. We went to see Beyonce and she'd asked me, she was like, do you think she still gets nervous? And I was like, yes, I think so. And she was like, why? And she knows, but she wants to get my take on it because I do this. And I was like, because it matters. And then it made me think about that because this matters. I'm nervous about it and I want to do well and all of that. So the advice, as I say it in this very circuitous way, the advice I got from the person here locally, um, he was like, use comedy. He's like, use comedy, do something you wouldn't do, try to get folks on your side. And because I always have a trouble starting. That's why we were talking before we actually got into if I just went in, it was like, all right, Malik, let's go. Malik, speak. You know what I mean? It would be wild. And I think being able to stretch, warm up, improv, you know this,
Yeah.
and be prepared in that way that kind of makes all these other things sort of forgiving. You get the people on your side before you go in and do your thing, and then you do your thing very well. That's the other thing about it. um so that's sort of what I'm getting. So in thinking about it, yeah, revisiting that whole stage thing is like I use comic references, and I already made one earlier with the MCU, but it's Crime Alley. Certain experiences of Crime Alley. That was the traumatic experience for Batman. It's just
There you
like,
go.
I need to go back here. I need to win this. I need to win this time. And each time it's generally a win, but you always think that it was a loss.
Yeah, yeah. That that nerves thing, heck yeah. I think I have I have this show that I do for kids. It's this assembly show. And you would think, out of all the things I do, I get the most nervous
Mm.
about performing this show. It is a simple show. The premise is really simple. An actor who almost lost it all because I couldn't work well with others. I discovered the joy of improv, and now I'm better again, and help me be better again through improv. Right? It's really cute. We have fun. Very simple. And you would think that I'm about to perform for, I was about to say the president, but I don't care about the president. You would think, it's like-
That's funny. Like, I don't care, Joe.
nah, because that would make me nervous. But you would think I was about to perform. You would think Malcolm X came back from the grave and was like, Malik, make me laugh. Like that's how nervous I get. Like that is that. Because here's the thing. Listen, Rob.
I'm listening.
If, because if Malcolm X came from the grave, one, you got a zombie.
This is
Two, it's Malcolm, and it's not. It's post Mecca Malcolm X.
I'm
You know what I
listening.
mean? You know what
Uh,
I mean? So he's El Haj Malik El Shabazz now.
yeah.
For him, he just got shot, right? So like that's where he's at. So it's a zombie. He's waking up, I'm assuming, from the point of that. And then it's still Malcolm X and make me laugh. Can you imagine the intense amount of pressure that would be?
I'm gonna add this layer to it. Is like Malcolm comes to you and says, "The balance of Black liberation is on your shoulders. If you can make me laugh, you're like, we
Right.
either get it or we don't."
You don't see, here's the thing. A lot of people, when you growing up, you run the scenario of it's like 3 seconds left on the clock. They give me the ball
Yeah.
and I shoot it, right? That's me. That's the scenario I run. Black liberation. It's on you. 3 seconds, like, oh God,
See,
please.
see, see, the thing is, I'm lazy. And as I said, like basketball and football, none of that works for me where it's super timed. I'm in this way of like, look, we're going to do this until I'm ready. It is baseball. It's like, yo, bases
Uh-huh.
loaded. You're down by three,
Okay.
two strikes, two outs.
That's your thing. All right, good,
Like, all
good,
right,
good.
cool. I can hit this. I'm going to foul this off a couple of times.
See, that's what I'm saying. If Malcolm X Zombie comes back, I don't have any foul. I feel like I don't have no foul balls to hit. He's looking for the one. And I'm like, it has to be funny and free black people. Like that's the pressure that I put on myself every day.
I
Be
love, I
funny
love,
and free black people.
I love pressure. We always put pressure on ourselves because, as I was saying earlier, it matters. Um, so I want to move into sort of the last sort of half of the pod or the last third of the pod. Um, you know, 40-year-old puberty. Let's talk about it.
Yes.
What is
Yeah.
it? For folks that are undipped, like, I don't, I'm not trying to bury the lead, but I just want to hand it off.
Yes, 40-year-old puberty is a humorous storytelling adventure about me being a grown-ass man with young-ass problems. I tell people like, all right, what is 40-year-old puberty like? So remember like 17, 18, 19, and you were just like moody, tired, and then also just horny as hell, right? Imagine that level of horniness with like the knees of a 40-year-old. And that and that is 40-year-old puberty. And so I have an entire show that kicks off just like with that joke.
It's good.
And I talk about my first puberty and how confusing it was growing up in a body that didn't match mine and all the things that. And then I get to my second puberty and how confusing it is to be in a body that matches, but now having to deal with, hormones
Yeah.
now I'm 42. So having to deal with hormone issues at 42 is wild. And so it's just like an adventure. It's a peek into my life. It's very vulnerable. I get really deep in it. But I think it's also just fun. I think it's fun to, from what people have told me, it is a chance for people to reflect on their puberty as well and their adolescence and stuff like that. And also just to think about I talk a lot about holding myself back
Yeah.
from being who I am. And so ending with like this question of like, what are you holding back? And what can you give yourself? So that's 40-year-old puberty. And it's a really fun show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got two more questions related to it, actually. So what was the process of bringing it from like idea, premise, concept, notepad? You might have one of those ugly books. I have this, one of my sponsors have one of those with the notes in there, to being on stage, to performing, to having it out there for folks to experience.
Yeah, thank you for that. It started, I received an artist residency with a theater called Curious Comedy Theater in Portland, Oregon,
Sure.
in 2023. And I was out there for the artist residency, and I started doing. I'm not a stand-up, but I started doing open mic stand-ups, and I did that joke that I told you about being what puberty is like at 40. And so that was something that I was like, I like that. Maybe play with that. And another thing that happened was Stacy Halal, who was then the managing director of that, asked me, "Do you want to do a one man show?" Mind you, she never heard me do. She only knew me as a improv comedian, and only heard like 3 minutes of horrible stand up. But that wasn't like for some whatever she saw it be. She saw the potential, and she asked me. She said you should do a one man show, and basically to make it happen, what we did was we started applying to fringe festivals that day.
Mm.
So we applied to a bunch of fringe festivals in Canada, and I and I got in. And so I was like, shit, now I gotta now I have to do it because I got in. It was like the worst news ever. And I got into Montreal Fringe, and so I started writing, and my process was ugly. Oh God, it was ugly. I was pulling everything, the beginning of storytelling for me is pull everything out first. So pull everything out and then decide what's the actual story. Take away everything that's not the story and then work on the story.
Yeah.
But the process of bringing everything out, like pull everything you think is related to your identity
Mm-hmm.
and your childhood. Pull every story you think that's relevant. That is intense. That is intense self work that was happening. It was a lot happening there, and a lot of it was just writing, writing, writing. My ex at the time was kicking my butt. Shout out Della Mosley. Thank you much. I love you. And I remember we were in Jamaica at her brother's wedding, and I read her. I read her like she was like, "Go write." I wrote for an hour. I read her like 10 minutes of what I thought was good stuff, and she listened and she said, "I thought you said this was going to be a funny show." I was like,
Like, where's the jokes? Malcolm X is here.
right, Malcolm X needs us. So I couldn't let her or Malcolm X down. But so just like I had a lot of stuff like that, just like people asking me about the show, everything else, but a lot of it was write, 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 rewrite, rewrite. I did what I did not recommend, which is not put it up before I went to the Fringe. Like I didn't do a run through or anything like that. I don't recommend that. But yeah, I wrote it for about 8 months, about 7 to 8 months, and then June of 23, I premiered it at Montreal Fringe,
So we're in the 1 year anniversary.
which is it's actually a year this week. It's a year this week.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a year this week, which is wild to your boy.
No, that's amazing. I mean, it's good to hear about sort of the process and the thinking that goes into it. And you know, you touched on this you touched on part of this sort of second question, which is the penultimate question for the sort of the crux of the main questions in the pod. But I definitely want to get sort of what is that key consideration when you're going through sort of the work piece, the self-editing piece, the going through of like, all right, like this is a important story that's related to sort of the themes here. However, this is very important. The importance of it is very high, but it's like, how can I make this funny? How can I make this interesting? How does this translate to being in the performance component?
I feel like that's an in progress question, to be honest. But the first level of edit that I do is like the brutal, is it absolutely necessary? Because it could be important, but
Sure.
is it absolutely necessary? Like, do you need this in order to tell the story? So those brutal pieces, I try to pull those away because those are the hardest. The hardest things to let go to are funny bits. Like when I get a funny, I don't like. I want to build a whole show around a funny bit. That's not how shows are built, right?
Right.
And so letting go of my funny bits. And then this show has evolved a lot. And so one of the things is that I am not the same man that I was when I wrote this a year ago.
Sure.
I've had I've had I've had breakups since then. I've had top surgery since then. Um, I've lost like almost 45 pounds since it. Like it's just like I am a whole nother person. So like that it's
Mm.
just an evolved piece. And so that is also a hard part because when I want to add something to the end, I still have to take stuff out, to make time and stuff like that. So it's basically every time I sit down, and I'm gonna have to do this next week because I have a show at the end of next week. Every time I sit down, the first question is all of this still relevant to who I am today?
Right. Yeah.
And then if it's not, then get rid of it. And then is there anything that's happening right now that adds to the story of 40-year-old puberty that absolutely needs to be told? And if that's the case, then I add it. But if it's like not really, then I leave it alone. And so I do that for every iteration. Right now, I'm probably going to keep. I did this. I performed in Portland, which was nice to come back to, but I performed in Portland last month.
Yeah.
So most likely I'm going to keep that iteration. But I have I'm in Victoria, Canada at the end of August. So between now and the end of August, I'll probably go through that question with myself again.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. So here's the last question, and this is more framed around advice, right? What advice would you share with someone, with an individual who wants to tell stories, who wants to be vulnerable, who wants to reveal sort of what they're holding back on? What's that key piece of advice you'd share with them?
I would say find a person or people that you feel really good and safe with and start there. Because when you're first starting out, your stuff is so precious to you that how it's received can alter if you continue. And so I would say treat those first stories really precious. The second thing I would say would be is that no matter how similar you are to someone else in the world, who you are is like unique, right? Like even if you're a twin, right? Like who you are, your perspective, your experiences is unique and it's worthy of a story. So if you're thinking, is this worthy of a story? It is. And then lastly, there's the only way that you can be a storyteller is to tell stories. So tell your story.
It's good. It's a good way to close out. It's like you've had a conversation before and presented before.
Something like that.
This episode of The Truth in This Art is brought to you in part by Ugly Books. High quality books designed to be used for whatever your brain comes up with. Available in a variety of colors and sizes. Treat them like a notebook, sketchbook, or scrapbook. Beauty has no rules. Learn more about them at uglybooks.co. Alrighty, so that's great. This has been really stellar. So let me move into the rapid fire portion. I just made two changes, so I'm really happy about these. And so and these are sort of that I said what I said, don't overthink it. So here's the first one. What is the worst day of the week?
Shit. It's hard because I don't like so many of them. I'm gonna say Tuesday. Fuck is up with Tuesday? Like it doesn't feel like the beginning of the week. It feels like the week has started, but I haven't done enough for it to be the middle of the week. And so I don't know what Tuesdays do. Every other day seems like it's related to something. Wednesday, hump day, middle of the week. Thursday, baby Friday. Friday is Friday. Saturday.
Day
All
drink.
the other days just speak for themselves. You could just say
Right.
Saturday, Sunday. And then Monday is hard, but it's Monday. It's like it's supposed to be there. But Tuesday, other than Taco Tuesday, like they had to put tacos on it to make it significant. That's a damn, like you had to add a food to it to make it a good day.
That's good. It was good.
Yeah,
I remember back in the day, we used to have media released on Tuesdays.
Yep.
Like new records was out or DVDs. Now it's just you get tacos. And then those are not, here's the thing, right? You're dealing with tacos, right? Now I'm going to sound like an old black man. When you're dealing with tacos, if they come in that little metal thing that's the holder to keep it together, those are trash tacos. Get them out of here.
And it's too much. And you know they're going to be too much. Like, not only are they trash, but they're going to be overpriced if they want, as soon as they hit that thing on there. Yeah. Give me a little plastic joint with like a sheet of tissue paper, and then all of them collapse together and it looks like they sharing toppings and shit. Like, that's why I want my tacos. Give me like that.
See, the one with sort of the colonizer metal is like the El Gentriferito or what have you. It's so wild. It doesn't work.
See, remember I was talking about connection earlier? They disconnect the tacos. And that's not, they don't want us connected. That's right. Colonizer tacos.
Can't be redlining tacos now. For the taco
redline tacos. You take your redline tacos back.
Someone's gonna isolate that and say, yo, what's up with the taco conversation? What's the hot taco talk?
Because we have to talk about gerrymandering and we have to talk about tacos. Like we have to have this conversation. We are the ones advancing that story. So shout out to us for seeing the truth.
While my competitor says no new taxes, I say no new toppings. That's so stupid. What is, and this is almost in a similar vein, is because we were talking about food, even though it was a question about week, but that's a good answer. Now, this is kind of a Baltimore-centric question.
Okay.
Is chicken box related?
Good.
Flats or drums is the part one of this question, right?
Flats, right. Okay.
But the part two is what kind of fry?
Oh, listen, I know I'm supposed to say Western. Fuck that. Give me a good steak fry or just
really,
honestly, and I can't get this. You can't get it in a chicken box, but really what I want is a fresh ass fry. Give me a fresh cut, but I don't want no Western fries. That's too thick. That's a potato. You're giving a baked potato. Like, I don't like baked potatoes. Give me some regular ass fries, please. Don't fry them too hard. Lightly salt them and leave me alone. Like, that's it. That
is wild particular. See, here's the thing. Noted food snob.Rob Lee here chiming in. It has to be drums. You said flats. So I'm over here side-eyeing.
I'm over here questioning why I did this podcast. It has to be drums.
Always drums.
I've never heard someone say it has to be drums.
Percussion. No, never mind. Black.
Bam.
But it's, like, I'm not a huge chicken wing guy to begin with, right? But I generally go with whatever feels like it's the easiest to eat. I don't like breaking, look, I've broken legs in real life. I don't need to break wings in, chicken life. So you got that. You got drums. And this is where we're on completely different islands. This connection that we had earlier is gone somehow. Yeah. I love Western fries.
Most of y'all do.
Language. This is where it gets even more dicey. I had a girl I used to date, was from St. Louis, and she was like, "What is your style?" Because she was like, "I hear all this stuff about the chicken box here." I was like, "Look, I get drums, salt, pepper, ketchup, Western fries, hot sauce, ketchup." She was like, "That's wild specific. You ran that off like it was a string."
You ketchup twice too.
Yeah, salt, pepper, ketchup, and hot sauce, ketchup. Yeah.
Hot sauce ketchup. The double. Leather. Yeah. That's I used to be a salt, pepper, ketchup guy. I did used to be salt, pepper, ketchup because I like the steam. Like, what I'm talking about, like when the steam and the ketchup, and like I liked how that tasted. But then the older I got, the less I wanted on my stuff. I'm like, just click it off. But yeah, I don't. I'm so mad that you got me on record talking about how I don't like Western fries, because they already be like, Malik, stop claiming, and they really gonna be like,
oh,
bruh, is you? I'm like, I swear I am, y'all.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. When it comes to, and I think you probably will agree with this.
Yeah.
Just I need to have hot sauce. I need to have hot sauce, especially with something like fried. Like if I get fried fish and there's no hot sauce, what are we doing? What country is this? What am I, Animale? What are we doing?
Look, we started. Listeners, viewers, I want you to know that me and Rob, we started this podcast and it was like, we might be bros. And now I don't eat hot sauce. All right, look, I know. Listen. Take. You can't take my card from me. I sold it in my skin because of this reason. Because I don't like grits and I don't like hot sauce. And I feel no ways about it. I've come to a point where I'm settled in my blackness. I don't like hot sauce. I like my mouth to feel good. Sorry, that's weird. Uh, and yeah, so
Do
that's
you
my
like
stand.
do you like mac and cheese and cornbread? I just need to.
I can't have mac and cheese because I'm lactose intolerant.
Oh well,
And I'm
that's
not one of those people that be like, it's not worth it to me. Cornbread, I love. I love
okay.
cornbread. I don't want corn in my cornbread though. I don't. Yeah, I don't like that cornbread.
It's like I'm trying to hit a food parlay with you, and I've only gotten cornbread, so it's
Now
fine.
we gonna do this, bro. Come on, like we got this. We can't end like this. We'll figure it out. But there's plenty of. I like the fried fish. I just don't put the hot sauce on it.
See, here's the thing. Now, this is where it's wild. Like, I hate chicken legs, right? My parents remind me that my first solid food was a chicken leg with hot sauce, and I was like, "Word!" I was like, "Nah," but that's probably why I like the drummies. I guess I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, because I was wild. You just said you don't like legs, but you eat drum meats because
yeah.
it's like, was a leg too big for you? Is that too much
It
to
is.
handle?
It seems like, and I feel bad about it. It seems like Renaissance fair commoner food. I refuse. If someone's like, "Man, I can't wait to get a turkey leg," I'm like, "You can throw that in the trash with the old lettuce."
Oh, so you just too good for the chicken leg.
Oh, I'm bougie. Oh, I'm
That
super bougie.
a chicken leg. Okay, chicken leg. I've never, because if you put a piece of white bread wrapped around like a hot piece of a drum, you got a sandwich right there. You kidding me? That's it. It's silly.
All right, let me hit you with this last question. Let me hit you with this last question. Um, what is the last song that you've listened to?
Damn it, Kendrick Lamar.
What song was it?
It was not like us, Kendrick Lamar.
Well, I mean, it is a bop. I'm like, you got to give it the
I
credit.
gotta stop listening to that song though. I just it gets me too hyped up. I'm like, who? Because here's the thing, right? Like, I don't I don't have enough beef around me to be absorbing this shit. So now I gotta like find the beef. So I'm in the gym, my headphones on, just imaginary like you not like me either, nigga. Like it's not good. And I'm not, we're opposite. Like I have a big personality and I'm short. You know what I mean? Like so people think on screen, they're like, this dude is probably at minimum average height. And then I get there, they like, Malik, you know what I'm saying? So it's not good for me to be beefing because I don't have what it takes. As much in my head I have what it takes to back it up, but I don't. Ain't got it. Got it.
I mean, that song will have you op hunting, so that's fine.
Who wants it? Who wants it? Who wants these? Who wants to challenge me in improv? Like, what am I beefing about? Like,
Here's the thing. I learned this, and that was sort of the wrap of the questions. I learned this earlier about sort of like I'm a cusp, so I'm a Capricorn Aquarius. And
okay.
when those two come together, all of my pettiest energy is full Capricorn. So I think that's the side that's like hunting for smoke regularly. And then the Aquarius is like, hey, man, let's just do something different, man. Let's just think about
Yeah.
the universe a little bit, bro.
My Leo energy keeps me from beef because my ego is like, for what?
For you.
You're right. And as soon as I want to beef, I catch myself in the mirror. I'm like, that's silly. Right. That's silly. Look at you. So yeah, y'all just work on your egos and it'll keep you out of beef. Stay away from Western fries.
Language. those are just baked potatoes. So let me close out on this. There's two things I want to do. One, I want to thank you for coming on and spending some time with me. This has been a lot of fun, and I got a lot of free laughs out of it. So that thing you've been looking for. And secondly, I want to invite and encourage you to share with the listeners website, social media, all of that good stuff. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Ti Malik presents.com is the website. I would ask you to start there and book me for some gigs while you're there. I am on Facebook, Ti Malik Coleman. Actually, if you look up, I'm the only Ti Malik Coleman in the world. So if you put Ti Malik Coleman in wherever I'm at, please find me. I have a show in Richmond on June 22nd. And in October, I will be running 40-year-old puberty for Black Pride Baltimore. So come out and hang with your boy. It'll be a fun time. Oh, and I almost forgot. I'm in a duo, Malik and Rashid. It's very, very funny. We have a lot of shows coming up in Baltimore this summer. So come fuck with your boy. Sorry for the language.
And there you have it, folks. I want to again thank Malik Coleman for coming to the podcast and sharing a bit of his journey with us. And for Malik Coleman, I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, culture, and community in and around your neck of the woods. You've just got to look for it.